Thank you so much for joining us on this evening to really dig deep and get some information from us all regarding the college search process. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Melissa Rodriguez. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an admissions counselor at the California Institute of Technology, otherwise known as Caltech.
Hi, and I'm Jennifer Blazik. I use she, her pronouns. I am the College for Rural Wisconsin Program Director at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha O'Brien. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a senior assistant director at Yale undergraduate admissions. My role is actually focused on working with community-based organizations and college access organizations. I'm a former college counselor, so I'm really excited to be here with my colleagues to talk about finding the right fit in the college search process.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Milton. I am the Associate Director of Admissions and Diversity Initiatives at the University of Maryland, College Park, and welcome. I will turn it back over to Melissa to give a little bit more information about the STARS College Network.
Thank you so much to my co-panelists. You will be hearing from them a little bit later on. First, we wanted to share some information. If you're unfamiliar with the STARS College Network, we are a collective of 16 schools, which you see on the screen right now. We are all geographically different. You'll notice some are on the West Coast, some are on the East Coast, the Midwest. We are of various sizes, various focuses. But how are we all unified? Well, on the next slide, you will see that the STARS College Network is focused on enhancing programming and outreach for rural and small town students. We all understand that talent is broadly distributed all across the country, and we are interested in bridging and creating new connections with community-based organizations, with students, with counselors, to really enhance the academic experience of all of the students that we admit by, again, paying special attention to fortifying relationships with rural and small town students. So what does that look like? Well, on the next slide, you will see that we are committed to providing a really wide array and breadth of opportunities for small town students, one of which is through travel. So a few of us last fall and spring did some group travel together to really go and meet students where they are. We also are really dedicated to creating fly-in programs, so actually bringing rural students to our campuses to see what it's like, just kind of boots on the ground, what the experience is like and what the feeling is like to be on our prospective campuses, connect with other rural students as well. The third pillar that you see there is what we're doing today, which is virtual sessions, really trying to inform students on various different topics. You can see our scheduled programming on starscollegenetwork.org, our website, to join us for any more webinar sessions that appeal to you. And lastly, we are focused on having long-standing success through this collective. So that can also be seen through creating internship opportunities, job opportunities, and partnerships with employers so that rural students have the options to return to their rural communities and really showcase all that they've learned through the STARS College Network, and take that knowledge and skill back to their communities. So that is some information about the STARS College Network, but we'd love to get into the actual meat and potatoes of the session today. So one thing to note is that bottom bar down on the bottom of the slide says academics. We've kind of categorized the topics based on just kind of wide buckets, we'll call them. So the first one, we're going to talk about the academics. So how do the academics inform the college search process? Well, here we have a few types of larger categories to consider. The first that you see there is the school type. So there are public universities, there are private universities, there are liberal arts colleges. They all have different types of experiences and different types of offerings. Public universities, of course, as it might be assumed, receive federal funding, public funding through the states. You might be familiar with your state schools. So I'm in California, so the UC system or the California State University system would be our largest public university systems in my state. There are private schools, which are their own separate educational entities and organizations. There are HBCUs, or historic Black colleges and universities. So there are really various types of colleges that provide unique experiences to students that are seeking those out. Over on the right corner, you see the majors. So of course, you want to make sure that you are considering colleges that offer academics that you are curious about and actually interested in pursuing. You might be really have your heart set on a school that doesn't particularly offer the bioengineering course or coursework that you're interested in pursuing, or whatever it is that you might be interested in. So you really want to make sure that you are spending 4 years at a school pursuing a degree that you are actually interested in and excited about. The third option that you see there on the screen is admissions requirements. So of course, you want to make sure that you're doing your research and making sure that you are keeping tabs of all of the different requirements that are expected of you to be an eligible applicant to that school. And these are going to vary. So it could be that some schools have a specific type of requirement for letters of recommendation, or they might have, a portfolio that they require on the side. So there are a lot of little nuanced things that might vary from school to school that you want to make sure that you are aware of as you apply to each respective school. Test policies. So of course, with COVID having happened, it caused a lot of conversation, a lot of adjustments from colleges and universities, changing their testing policies. Potentially they were requiring them. Maybe now they've shifted to test optional, or being test free and not requiring the tests at all. So being mindful of the testing policy and how that can help impact your submission of an application is also something to consider. And of course, we have the chats and the Q&As open, so feel free if any of this is, you want to add like a follow-up thought or follow-up question, please feel free to use that. And lastly, the admitted student profile. So getting an idea of what the school looks like in a year-to-year basis, where students are coming from, how many applications you see, all of that information that kind of, again, gives you a scope of what the institution typically likes to create in a composite class every year, is really helpful in helping you see yourself and be realistic about where it is that you potentially see yourself flourishing in college for the next 4 years as well. And I'll hand it over to my next colleague for the next slide.
So when you're thinking about your needs and wants when it comes to college and considering all the options that higher ed has for you, there's a few criteria that we have more in that social/living category. So think about the type of environment where you're most likely to thrive. So we have a couple leading questions that'll help you with this criteria. So for example, how far away from home do you want to be? Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be as far away from home as possible? You might want to talk to your parents about this, but it's really up to you in the end. And thinking about, do you have any commitments that keep you within a decent driving distance from home? So those are things to consider as your distance from home. Then, do you want to stay in state? Do you want to stay, or do you want to travel out of state and go to a campus somewhere else? Do you have a preference that the college be rural, suburban, or urban? For example, I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's a very urban campus. We're in the heart of downtown. So, and then other campuses are very rural. So depending on kind of what you're interested in, what is that kind of environment that you want to be in? What kind of climate are you comfortable living in, right? That's an important one. If you come from the South and it's very warm and you're like, I don't ever want to see snow, potentially UW-Madison is not the place for you then, right? Because we do get snow. We have 4 seasons across for the year. So, and we do get snow during those winter times. So it's something that's really, it seems like it's not a big deal, but if you think about it, if you have to change your whole wardrobe, is that something you're interested in doing or not? So thinking about what kind of climate. And what is the weather that happens, especially from that August to May time, because that's when you're going to be on campus and you're going to be experiencing that weather. You may be going home over summer or doing an internship or taking a job. So you might not be on campus to experience that weather, which is the summer. So thinking about that August to May weather time is perfect. And then how big do you want campus to be? So do you want to be on a small campus or a large campus? So small is generally under 5,000 students and large is over 15,000 students to kind of help you see what that kind of range is. And then do you want to live on campus, live off campus, or commute? Those are all things that take into account. Plus that also impacts your financials in the end too, because if you're commuting, that's extra transportation. Living on campus, you're in a residential hall. Those are all things to take into account as far as how you are going to have that campus experience. And that segues really nicely into our next topic here, which is still about that social living, but it's thinking about clubs and activities and the experience that you're going to have beyond the academics. So what do you want to do outside of classes? Thinking about your interests, how you want to find your community on campus, how to meet friends. So like Greek life, athletics, student organizations, entertainment that happens around on and off campus. These are things that you're interested that are going to really fulfill your life beyond the academics and going classes, because campus is more about that, right? Going to college is that whole holistic experience and learning and taking part in all these things that are interests, either new interests or things that you've been interested in for a long time. So you really want to think about not only campus culture, what is happening on campus, who the student demographics, who it is that is on campus, but also what is that local community, right? What is the city, the town that you're living in? Those are all things that are going to affect your experience of college. So you want to take that into consideration too. And really an important thing that oftentimes we forget when we're thinking about college is what are those support services that colleges offer for students? For example, what kind of academic advising do they have? What kind of support do you as a student have in that space? Any mentoring and tutoring opportunities that you might have. Also for students who need disability access, for example, help with note-taking or giving more time on exams. Those are all things that you want to look into if that might be something that's important to you and part of your needs and wants. So I'm going to turn it over to my next colleague, Samantha.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, everyone. Fair warning. I'm a bit of a financial aid nerd, so I apologize in advance if I talk too long or maybe too fast about any of these concepts. I'm genuinely thrilled to share this aspect of FIT or the search process with you, and we'll try to make it as concise and clear as possible. First thing to consider here, are the colleges and universities you are looking at need aware or need blind? In other words, do they know you are applying for financial aid or not? So I'm at Yale. Yale adopted a need blind admissions policy back in 1963, which means your ability to pay or not pay cannot hurt you in the admissions process. So financial aid applications are reviewed and financial aid is awarded completely separate from admissions. And this might not be the case at all institutions. Second, do the colleges and universities you are considering meet 100% of need? So need is usually calculated based on your family's annual income and assets using applications like the FAFSA, CSS profile, and copies of recent tax documents. The requirements and deadlines are different for every institution, so this is research you're gonna wanna do beforehand. While somewhere like Yale covers 100% of that calculated need, other institutions may cover less. So quick example. Let's say you hope to attend an institution that costs $40,000 a year. I'm using very round numbers here. And your family's calculated financial need is $30,000, meaning they can only afford $10,000 towards the cost. If the institution is 100% need met, you would receive the full $30,000 in financial aid. If it is only 50% need met, you might receive $15,000, but that leaves a bill of $25,000 in order to attend, okay? Lastly, do the colleges and universities you are considering offer merit scholarships or need-based aid? So Yale does not offer merit or athletic-based scholarships. We think everyone who is admitted is deserving of our merit. So financial aid is need-based here. Some institutions may offer scholarships based on merit or your academic achievements. All right, I know that's a lot so far, but one of the most important takeaways here is to complete financial aid research on the institutions you're considering before you apply to make sure they're a good financial fit. Trust me from experience that you do not want to apply to a range of colleges and universities that are good academic and social fits, get admitted and not be able to afford to attend. So I ended up going to the university that gave me the most financial aid, but that bottom line or the net cost, as you see on your slide, was astronomical. I had over $100,000 in student loan debt that I would not have had if these two calculators, my intuition's quick college cost estimator, say that 3 times fast, and net price calculators were available when I applied to college. The Obama administration made these a requirement as part of the Affordable Care Act for you to use, so please take advantage of them. The My Intuition quick college cost estimator, see, it's hard to say, literally takes 3 minutes. It is super fast and easy to use. The net price calculator is a bit more comprehensive, but takes 10 to 15 minutes, so not a ton of time. You'll get the hang of these the more you do them and anticipate some of the questions that will be asked in the financial aid information you need to input. Both of these will provide an estimate financial aid award. It will look similar to the calculation you see on the slide. It will show the total cost of attendance, which captures everything from direct costs like tuition, fees, housing, and meals. So these are things you would pay the institution for, and indirect costs like travel and estimated personal expenses. These are things you pay for separately, but are all included in the cost of attendance. Now, financial aid can come in many forms. Grants and scholarships are free money. We love those. But you may also see loans in something called work study. Work study is an amount you actually have to work to earn. So once you earn it, that can go towards indirect costs like that travel or personal expenses, but it probably won't help with your bill. So these types of financial aid can come from the federal government, the state, the institution, or private means. There's a variety of ways that these financial aid pieces can take shape. The net cost or price ends up being the cost of attendance minus financial aid and can be comprised of a parent share and a student share. I know I referenced Yale multiple times here, but I will provide links to Wisconsin, Caltech, and Maryland financial aid websites in the chat and answer any financial aid questions that you might have to the best of my ability. So feel free to ask away in the Q&A. Next slide.
Thanks, Samantha. And as a reminder, as Samantha just referenced, we do have the Q&A feature active, so our fingers are ready to go for all those questions you may have. So please feel free to use it and send us questions. Again, this is Courtney from University of Maryland. When we were thinking about the college search, each of our 4 schools really thought we would be remiss if we didn't talk about what happens post-college and that post-college support you may need as well. So when you're thinking about that college search, don't just be thinking about those majors, the location, but also be thinking about what's going to happen after you graduate. So some of those key things to think about: career building and post-graduation opportunities. Does the university you're looking at have a strong alumni network? I can speak for each of our schools. We have strong alumni networks. What that means is that an alum in your area may be able to come to your campus for a career fair, or they may be reaching out to your professors for internship opportunities. And then your professor says, I know Melissa extremely well. She always is in the front of the class and raises her hand, so I'm going to send the internship directly to her. But be thinking about those types of things, about really building that career network after you graduate. You also want to think about what research and internships are available and what type of funding. If you talk to any student that's a senior in college right now, do you know what they'll tell you? They'll tell you the most underutilized thing was the Career Center, and they did not use it until senior year. So I speak for all 4 of our schools where I say, go to the Career Center, please, not just your senior year. Most of Career Centers do mock interviews. They also do resume writing workshops. Again, that means that for a mock interview, you can go to the Career Center. They have sample questions to ask, and they actually will record you. Since we're living in such a virtual world now, being able to see how you appear on screen for like a Zoom interview before the interview, I cannot tell you how helpful that is as you're preparing for a career right now. And then staying current in your field or industry. Things such as joining, for instance, an engineering society or association. That's important to learn information. Having a very active LinkedIn account. Again, even if you're starting to build that network small, just making sure if you're meeting someone at a career fair, you're adding them to LinkedIn, sending them a follow-up message, or each of us have LinkedIn accounts. Feel free to add the admissions counselors or assistant or associate directors that you're looking at as well. And then making sure you're also attending those career fairs and also grad school fairs, because some of you may decide you want to extend and go to grad school instead of going out into the working world right away. So be thinking about grad school opportunities as well. Next slide, please. So next steps. I cannot stress enough, it is never too early for you to start planning for your future. So get moving. Attend those college search events. Guess what? Each of you are already ahead on your college search because you're joining us tonight. So bravo to you. Review college websites. Start to prioritize those key factors. So I would tell each of you to ask yourself, when you go to visit that tour or that campus, ask yourself, do I see myself thriving here for the next 4 years? And if the answer is yes, then maybe that's definitely a school that continues to stay on your college list. but you want to make sure you're asking yourself that at each school you visit to make sure that that's the best school and fit for you. Visiting those tours, again, most schools are offering some virtual tours, but also in person. So come on to campus and visit in person and get to see the campus. Then most schools do open their applications in August. So if you're a current junior that's joining us this evening, I hope you heard that most schools open their applications in August. So be starting to check their websites for when the applications open. And then also some of those tools in terms of application platforms have tools to help guide you through the process. So they may have a checklist for you to go to. Some of them even have a virtual folder where you can store information. But again, get started early in terms of your college search process and just thinking about it. I'm going to turn it over to my next wonderful colleague to give a bit of an analogy about buckets and how you can best figure out the best way to think about the best school and fit. So Jennifer, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Courtney. Yeah, so we gave you a lot of criteria, a lot of factors to consider. So you get started on your college search process, and then are you overwhelmed by your choices? There's so many great options. We have 4 awesome options right here on the call, but then there's so many more out there. If you don't know how to organize all your different choices and how to sort through them, then the bucket model is a great way to do that. So with the bucket model, the first step is to use your academic data. So that's your GPA, your class ranking, any of the AP, IB courses that you might have taken or are going to take in your high school career. And you're going to compare that to the college's admission requirements of the colleges that you're looking at. So the 3 buckets, I'll go into a little detail about them. So the dream school bucket this is the college you hope to attend. Maybe it's the one you've always dreamed about attending. You're like, from when I was 5 years old, I always wanted to go to this college, right? So you're going to put any of those colleges in this bucket where you may fall below in more than one area of academic requirements, but your application would still be considered. So you're not necessarily in the top group, but you still would be considered as an applicant, right? And it's that school that you just really want to attend, right? It's your dream. The match school bucket, this bucket is for colleges that are the right fit for you. So you want to put any colleges which will be both academically challenging, but also socially and emotionally fulfilling in this bucket. And then academically speaking, when you look at the requirements of the college, you'll fall somewhere in the middle of those admission requirements. And then your safety school, this is the bucket for colleges where you're guaranteed to get in. So it's kind of those low-hanging fruit colleges, right? So you'll put any of those colleges in this bucket. So you want to be really realistic about the colleges you put into these buckets, right? We talked about social, academic, financial fit. This is really important. So you want to put any colleges you put into your buckets, that one that you're actually considering and that match your needs and wants to. You really don't want to have a school that's way out there and is way too far from home that your goal is. Has no opportunity for support services, all these things that you had already identified in the criteria of your needs and wants. You want to make sure that what goes in your bucket is actually realistic for you. So for example, if you need to be within 2 hours of home, then campuses on the other side of the country probably are not going to be in your bucket, right? They're not going to meet your needs. So you don't want to even consider them in your bucket. So that's one way that you can organize. And I'll drop in the chat once I'm done talking here to a really great workshop, my rural peer ambassadors who are current college students who are from rural areas. They have created a really handy worksheet that's really student driven that can help you kind of work through this bucket model. So I'll drop that in the chat so you can use that if you want. So a question that we get a lot is, when should I start looking at colleges? And the time to start your search can vary, but we mostly recommend exploring options during your junior year and finalizing the list of colleges you want to apply the summer before your senior year, right? Applications open in August. So again, just to reiterate, the earlier the better, and remember to keep your options open. So in terms of submitting your application, you always want to make sure you look at the school's deadline. So most applications open in August, but the question is, when is that deadline? When do I need to get my application submitted? So there's 4 different admission deadlines that we're going to talk through and we have a little bit of the definition on the slide as well. But so early decision, not all schools have this. You won't often know what financial aid package you'll receive before applying, so make sure you consider your financial situation. So this is really important because you actually receive your admission decision before the regular application. Early action. You don't have to notify the school of your decision right away, so you can still apply to other colleges during the regular decision period if you wish. So this one gives you a little bit more leeway with your decision. Now, regular decision, this is the most common. You have more time to prepare your application materials, but also less time to finalize your offer decisions. So think about that when you're thinking about regular decision. And then rolling, some schools have this where they have the rolling applications. So they don't have deadlines, and others, like most of us, do have deadlines for our applications. Now, when it's rolling, some have a priority deadline where they consider students more seriously if they apply before that date. So they say, well, you're kind of serious about us, so we're gonna give you a little bit of priority, right? Even though our admissions application is rolling. So again, most applications open around August 1st. Oh, sorry about that. Got a little crazy with my mouse here. But you can start working on your application before it officially opens, right? Essays, that's a great thing to start early because that's something you want people to look at, you'll want feedback on. So start those things early, even before that application opens. But consider, again, knowing what application deadlines your school that you're considering is offering. So kind of to wrap up this college search process and thinking about that, some important things not to forget. So don't sell yourself short by only applying to your safety school. Remember, try for that dream school of yours. You really want to push yourself, and you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen. So apply to at least one college in each of your 3 buckets. It's really important not to put all your eggs in one basket. I did that. I was like, I'm only going to this one school, and thankfully I got in, but if I wouldn't have, where would I have been, right? And so that is something important. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And besides, applying to multiple schools gives you the chance to decide where you want to go. You take control over the process.
All right, I know we have a couple open questions in the Q&A. So as we review these, we might be able to answer some live. I also wanted to share a couple other tips since we did speed through that a little quicker than I anticipated. For the financial aid section, I know we had a lot of questions about where they can find certain calculators or information about respective institutions. And I'll be completely honest, when I would send these calculators to students I worked with, creating their lists and helping them apply to college, I would literally Google like Yale Net Price Calculator, and like that wonderful algorithm will pull the exact link for you, and then you can click it and go into it. So you can do that for any college on your list, or my intuition calculator. Sometimes, depending on the institution, it can be a little tricky to navigate our websites that have like a ton of information. So Google is your friend here. I would definitely suggest playing around with finding some of those and doing that financial aid research. Are there any questions, co-panelists, that would be helpful to answer live that you see right now?
Samantha, I see one about no loan policies. I don't know if that's one that you'd like to take with the new there are several schools that are adopting that policy.
Sure. So for Yale specifically, if a family's income is their annual gross income is under 75,000 with typical assets. So what that means is they either own or rent their own home. There aren't multiple properties. They don't own a business, very like standard kind of tax returns. Then your financial aid package will be loan free and you'd get 100% need met. So loan free can depend on the institution. Depending on where you're applying, they might have loans in your package that are from the institution itself, from the federal government. There are loans through them or through those other sources. So each institution will have different criteria around what threshold you need to meet in order to qualify for that no loan policy. So you can usually find whether or not you meet that threshold by doing those calculators mentioned earlier. Hope that was helpful. Oh, there was a question from Lydia about living on campus. I can't tell you the exact percentage at Yale, but I can tell you the majority of students live on campus, and usually for all 4 years in New Haven, mainly because if you do like a virtual info session, I'm actually doing one tomorrow if you want to sign up for the one tomorrow, talking about our housing. It's kind of unique in the sense that I like to describe it like Hogwarts. You kind of get sorted into different houses. We call them residential colleges. And students get really obsessed with their RCs, their residential colleges, and their suite style. So you're usually with multiple students, multiple rooms in one kind of like bathroom, kitchen, living situation. And you stay for a long time because that becomes a really big part of your living and learning community. So at Yale, there's a lot of students definitely living on campus. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on the housing at their institutions, but that'd be great.
Yeah, I can speak for Caltech specifically. We guarantee housing for the first 2 years. We also have a very similar kind of housing system. Every house has their own set of traditions and characteristics that make them unique. And I would say the large majority of our students like to live on campus, but we do have a small faction of students, I'd say maybe less than a quarter, that prefer to live off campus in our off campus, either our off campus apartments, or through their own selection of housing off campus.
I can go next. So yes, so we have residence halls, and then we also have living and learning communities. And so they often are located in residence halls. So you can apply to join a living learning community where it's a little bit more close-knit. It's more of a community kind of vibe versus residence halls. You know, you get to really know your floor mates, but otherwise, I would say the majority of our incoming freshmen are living on campus. That's kind of the quintessential college experience. So majority of freshmen, especially because they're new to Madison and trying to figure out where they want to be. It's a lot easier to meet folks when you live on campus. So the majority of our incoming freshmen do live in our residence halls. And then a lot of sophomores, but then pretty much juniors and seniors tend to, because they have established communities, established friendships, they tend to live off campus. And because we're downtown, we have a lot of off-campus living in apartments. So there's a lot of availability for students to find living. But yeah, the majority do live on campus at UW-Madison.
I'll just add on to what Jennifer just said about those living and learning programs and the importance of those. So again, for some schools, it may be that they select you for a living and learning program based off your application you submit to the institution. So versus as the University of Maryland College Park, for any of those students that apply early action, they're reviewed for living and learning program selection, where other schools may ask you to actually apply for that living and learning program. But when you're really thinking about that size and fit, those truly make universities feel smaller. So we can't stress that enough. With some living and learning programs, you're also taking classes together as well as living in the same residence hall. And then also some of your professors or the faculty members overseeing that living learning program are also present. So again, you're able to just actually go right down from your residence hall dorm room to the faculty, professors, possibly their office. In Maryland, most of our incoming freshmen do live on campus. I would say with that, probably starting sophomore year, a lot of our students get that itch they want to be in apartments, which we have close. They are able to still live on campus. We do offer a lottery system. And then in the College Park area, we're building a lot of apartment buildings for, again, those upperclassmen that decide to move off campus. I see a question about fly-in programs. Oh, perfect, Samantha. I love we're on the same page. At University of Maryland College Park at the moment, we do not offer fly-in programs, but I will turn it over to one of my colleagues who does possibly offer a fly-in program to talk a little bit more about that.
Part of my role is actually developing a fly-in program. So in the fall, Yale has a annual multicultural open house event that is typically for regional students and families to come. We haven't been able to host students from across the country in the past to this event, but we are, you heard it here first, developing one for this fall. It's usually the last weekend in September, and save the dates and information for those will actually be going out within the next month or so. So we'll have a save the date and information on our website, our admissions website soon for a student fly-in program. We're also hoping to do some counselor programs. So there's STARS, obviously counselors can disseminate information to their students a little bit more widely, excuse me. We are hoping to host a few weeks before that multicultural open house one for students, a fly-in with Yale, Brown, and MIT, which is very exciting. So again, the information on how to apply will be coming out within the next month or so, since those programs are in the fall. Outside of like Yale specifically, it can honestly be a little tricky to figure out which colleges and universities have fly-in programs. A lot of times the application information for those come out in the spring or very early summer, depending on the school. So similar to that, like really simple like Google search I explained earlier with like net price calculators and my intuition, you can search the name and fly-in program and see if something comes up. I also have a blog that I used to share with students and families that I will see if it's still available. I'm happy to share it as like a resource in the chat. So give me a second to look that up. But if anyone else wants to add to fly-ins, please feel free.
Sure, I can talk a little bit. I threw in the chat Caltech's website about our fly-in program, and it's called Caltech Up Close. I saw someone mention that they are currently a junior. Is it still possible to participate? So I'll go ahead and click that I'm answering that live. Yes, so for our fly-in specifically, it is reserved for rising seniors. So if you're in your junior year, right, then we open up our application over the summer around June, August, and our fly-in program occurs in October every fall. So yes, if you're a junior, you can still participate. Of course, that will vary. Your mileage will vary depending on which school you are applying to, but I believe CAPEX, CAPPEX, they have a database of fly-in programs that you can kind of see based on where you're interested in kind of exploring. But yeah, so that's Caltech's specific one, but also I'd encourage you to check out the CAPEX resource to see just the breadth of other schools that offer fly-in programs like this. And of course, on the horizon, if you receive our emails through the STARS College Network, you will get notified about the other schools that are offering, that are STARS members that are offering and collaborating to create fly-in programs. So that's something that Caltech hopes to also enact on the horizon, is a rurally focused fly-in program, which would be wonderful. So great question.
So I know I saw the question come in and I typed it. One of the questions that came in was about what do we believe students sometimes forget to put on their resume? And so I can certainly start by sharing one of the things that I mentioned in terms of things that, are forgotten on resumes when students start to building it, is truly their involvements outside of the classroom too. So again, when you're thinking about building the activities list and resume, don't just think about what you're doing in your high school. Think about how you're involved within your community, possibly within a faith base or church or synagogue, including that as well. Family commitments and also work responsibilities. All of those are truly considered when we're looking at an applicant because that's what is a holistic process in terms of seeing commitments inside and outside of school. So I always recommend for students they remember to include those things as well. But Jennifer and Melissa, was there anything else you see that is usually not included on a resume that you would love for a student to include?
I don't have anything specific. I think you captured it really well, all the different elements, and just thinking and the key with resumes is it's really hard to be, very, speak about yourself and kind of put yourself out there and be, really talk yourself up, because we tend to be very humble, right, when talking to yourself. But this time, the resume is a great place to be like, okay, if I had to showcase myself, what do I want to do, right? And just do it. Put yourself out there. It might make you uncomfortable, but it's really great experience. And, we were talking about post-college support. And so you'll have to be doing resumes a lot later too. So this is a great way to practice. But it is tough to do. We have all been there. We all, even all of us here, it's really hard to be like, okay, should I really put this on here? Do it. And then get feedback too. Have people look at it. That's always really handy, because other people will be like, well, I know you did this, especially teachers and coaches and others. And so why isn't this on here? So that's what I would add to, is just get outside input too.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think you both raised some really awesome points. Going back to Jennifer's slide with Ted Lasso, don't sell yourself short. We don't know you any better than you know yourself. You are the only one that knows yourself as well as anyone ever could. So having a really good sense of who you are and really being unafraid to again, step into your accomplishments and be really proud about sharing them in ways that are compelling is really helpful. I also just wanted to shout out for those of you, I saw some kind of glimmers of this conversation happening in the Q&A. On April 2nd, if you go to starscollegenetwork.org and click on events, we will be having a webinar session on holistic review, which I think will be helpful for students to kind of understand how do college admissions, committees make sense of all of these different students and all of these different backgrounds and all of these different interests that we have. And that's really where holistic review comes into play for those schools that do have holistic review. So again, just being mindful of you're not really trying to aspire to anyone's bar, but your own, and really be a compelling applicant of your own. So like Jennifer and like Courtney mentioned, having a good sense of self, it can be tough to kind of think about those things, but that's why it's really wonderful that here you are in March, very early March, thinking about these topics. So I would just highly encourage you all to join that webinar next month as well.
I can speak a little bit to the question about medical classes. So much like with our vet school, we have a medical school on campus. We don't have a pre-med or a pre-vet track, but there's if you're interested in that, there's recommended courses to take, because at the end of your sophomore year, you'll be applying to medical school or applying to our vet school program. So there's certain courses that you want to take, especially in the STEM fields, that there's more information on our website, but we definitely offer those medical courses, and then there's pathways to that professional program through our vet school and our medical school as well.
So at the University of Maryland College Park, we don't have medical school classes. We have a pre-med program. We also have a pre-vet program. So what that means is that we have a pre-medical advising office that will work with you in terms of looking at the different medical schools you are interested in applying to. We're also one of the few schools in the Big Ten that those advisors will actually write your letter of recommendation for medical school as well. And then I dropped in for someone who had asked about agriculture classes, that at the University of Maryland College Park, we do have a College of Agricultural and Natural Resources. Again, pre-vet program, but not pre-vet as a minor or major at University of Maryland College Park.
I see a smattering of different questions. I can just quickly answer. I see the legacy status. So that's going to vary based on institutions. At Caltech, we don't consider legacy status as part of our review and consideration. Students get in on their own. So that's just Caltech.
Same at UW-Madison, we don't consider legacy status at all.
Similar with the University of Maryland College Park, we also do not consider legacy status or demonstrated interest as well.
Yes, same with demonstrated interest with Caltech as well. And just to be brief, if anyone is wondering, what is demonstrated interest? Demonstrated interest is essentially the act of connecting with an institution and having points of interaction with an institution, whether that is by emailing the admissions counselor or by attending information session on their campus, going on a campus tour. Just all of those little points of interaction are a way that student can show demonstrated interest in a school, going to an interview with an alumni, any one of those different types of engagements. Some schools do take that into account, and they might get really excited about a student that has shown a lot of interest in their school, but many schools also do not. So that might be something that you can ask of schools when you go to college fairs and stuff like that. So good question.
So I saw a follow-up question. I know I was the one that talked about resumes and activities lists. And so with that, it depends on the school. So certainly some schools may ask you for a resume, where others may ask you for an activities list. So again, it's kind of how you decide to format it in terms of the best piece of advice I can say, especially if we have any 9th or 10th graders joining us this evening, is start writing it down now. Just create a Google Doc to just write down what you're involved with inside and outside of school, and just keep adding to it. So then once it becomes senior year, it's easier for you to think about, at least you have a general idea of what you're involved in, instead of getting to senior year and you were trying to remember, what club was I involved in 9th grade and what was my leadership role? It's just easier to start early and start building that now, instead of when you're in the stress of senior year and applying to colleges and also making sure you're getting great grades, all of that. just easier to start early in terms of just having a running list of that.
Excellent. So we are rounding out the hour. That was really, really great. How quickly we went through all of that information. We have one final slide for you all to make sure to keep in touch with us at the Stars College Network. If we could just push forward one slide so you can connect with us further. You can learn more about our 16 member schools. You can read about the fly-in programs that are coming up in the next few months and throughout the year that are planned. Stars also has a partnership with Khan Academy and Schoolhouse to help kind of expand the academic offerings that a student is able to showcase a school, where you can get certified in other curriculum if that is not particularly offered at your school. You can join the STARS Discord community. So that is on the horizon. We are almost about to launch the Discord server where you can connect with other small town and rural students across the country, as well as ambassadors within our member schools to go ahead and ask them and connect with them about the small town rural experience at each respective school, and much more. So again, please make sure that you are receiving our emails. I threw in the chat, we have a YouTube channel. So that is something else that you can connect with, and I threw that in the chat as well. And again, we have our emails that we listed on our respective slides. Please make sure to connect with us on our admissions websites if you have any additional questions for our schools directly. Again, we all have really wonderful opportunities for all of you. And we hope that this was a great foundation for how you can begin if this is your day one of getting started on the college search process. We hope we've given you some great material to kind of consider as you take off and begin to craft your college list. And we've got one last minute left. So thank you so much for your time and for all of your wonderful questions. The chat really got fired up there at the end. Thank you so much. We love to interact with our students. So again, please make sure to connect with us via our emails, our admissions office emails, and we would love to keep in touch. But otherwise, we hope to see you at the next STARS virtual webinar session, or potentially on our campuses if we have any fly-in opportunities where we can connect once again. But thank you so much for your time, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.